It was early evening in Nuremberg, and the heat of the day still lingered on the cobbled streets as city dwellers drifted home or gathered in taverns to share a meal. The date was May 26th, 1828, and a quiet expectancy filled the air, the sort that settles in a city when dusk begins to drape its shadows across familiar lanes. In one such lane, the Unschlittplatz, a modest square lined with small shops and houses, a pair of shoemakers swept dust from their thresholds, their movements rhythmic and unhurried, while nearby a child's laughter rang out as a wooden hoop clattered along the stones. The soft clip-clop of hooves echoed from a passing carriage, its lanterns bobbing gently, illuminating the faces of two elderly women deep in conversation over a basket of eggs. The townsfolk, wrapped in plain woolen jackets and linen aprons, paid little mind to the solitary figure approaching from the far end of the square, a teenage boy, oddly stiff in his gait, his boots several sizes too large and his coarse, ill-fitting coat swallowing his thin frame. In his hand, he clutched a folded letter, pressed tightly to his chest, while his other arm hung awkwardly at his side. His hair, unkempt and unevenly cut, fell over eyes that darted from one building to the next with a look of mingled awe and uncertainty. As the boy paused near the shoemaker's workshop, the scent of fresh leather mingled with the faint tang of horse manure drifting from the street. He hesitated, then approached a burly man in a leather apron, and with stiff, almost mechanical movements, handed over the letter. The shoemaker, accustomed to the daily rhythms of the city and its many wanderers, glanced down in surprise at the young stranger's dirt-caked hands and curious bearing. Around them, the sky deepened to a dusky blue, and a bell from the nearby church tower tolled the hour. In that brief, unremarkable instant, while neighbors exchanged pleasantries and candles flickered in windowsills, neither the shoemaker nor his companions could sense the enormity of what the evening would bring. The boy, later known as Kaspar Hauser, stood silently as the letter changed hands, the city's pulse continuing undisturbed. Every detail of the moment, down to the frayed edges of the boy's coat and the rough cobbles beneath his feet, preserved in the memory of those who witnessed his arrival, even as they dismissed him as another lost wanderer on the margins of their daily life. In the wake of Kaspar Hauser's sudden appearance on the cobblestone streets of Nuremberg in May 1828, the city hummed with attention that filtered into homes, market stalls, and the echoing corridors of the police station. Ordinary townspeople, their hands red and rough from daily work, whispered his name as they queued for bread at the Backer Brunnenplatz, or paused beneath the looming stone towers of St. Sebaldus Church. Children, clutching wooden hoops and spinning tops, gathered in small clusters, casting furtive glances at the guarded entryway to the Unschlittplatz prison, where Kaspar was first confined. Artisans and merchants debated his origins over pewter mugs in the Gasthauser, their voices rising above the clatter of tankards and the aromatic haze of roasting meat. In the city's cramped taverns, where the air was thick with sawdust and pipe smoke, rumors ran rampant. Some insisted that Kaspar was the lost heir of a distant principality, others a gypsy child, or even the victim of a cruel prank. The city council, their faces drawn with worry, met behind closed doors in the wood-paneled chambers of the Rathaus, poring over the cryptic letter Kaspar carried and the curious details of his arrival. His uncertain gait, his inability to speak more than a handful of words, and his bewildered, almost animal gaze. Police Chief Herr Binder, a man known for his meticulous notes and stiff bearing, paced the uneven flagstones of his office, dispatching uniformed officers to canvass the city's inns and checkpoints for clues to the boy's identity. Meanwhile, the city's pastors and schoolmasters, accustomed to the routine of catechism and lessons, found themselves pressed into unexpected duty, instructed to observe the boy, assess his wits, and test his memory with simple objects: an apple, a quill, a worn leather shoe. Each item met with the same puzzled fascination. The pressure mounted not only in official quarters but in the private spaces of Nuremberg's residents, where parents watched their own children for signs of strangeness, and old women muttered prayers as they passed the site where Kaspar had first been found. clutching his letter and staring wide-eyed at his new world. In every corner of the city, from the dark cellars stacked with barrels of beer to the sunlit greens of the Tiergartner Torplatz, the mystery of Kaspar Hauser pressed upon the people, a growing weight that threatened to break the boundaries of their ordinary existence. Inside a cramped, dimly lit cell in Nuremberg city tower, the boy known as Kaspar Hauser sat huddled on a straw-filled mattress, the rough edges of the walls pressing in around him. The year was 1828, and Hauser had been discovered only months earlier, standing bewildered in the Unschlittplatz, clutching a letter addressed to the captain of the 4th Squadron of the 6th Cavalry Regiment. His presence sent ripples across the town, and now each morning the warder would swing open the heavy wooden door, the iron hinges creaking, and slide in a bowl of bread and water. Kaspar's boots, too large for his feet, had been donated by a local cobbler, who shook his head at the boy's soft, uncalloused soles, evidence of a life spent indoors and away from hard labor. Visitors gathered in the corridor, peering through the barred window to catch a glimpse of the enigmatic youth whose hair had been hacked short, as if in haste. Dr. Friedrich Daumer, a local schoolmaster, entered with his notebook, observing how Kaspar repeated words only after hearing them, his dialect a curious mixture unfamiliar to experts. A flickering candle on the table illuminated the scratches on the walls, some recent, others older, testifying to the isolation of previous prisoners. The air was thick with the sense of mildew and lye. As the city's church bells tolled the hour, Kaspar's eyes darted nervously to the small casement window, beyond which the daily life of Nuremberg went on. Tradesmen haggled in the market square, children chased hoops along the cobbled lanes, women in linen aprons swept their stooks. But behind this stone barrier, the boy's world was bounded by questions. Each day he was prodded gently to recall his past, but he could say little besides the phrase, "I want to be a cavalryman, as my father was." The townspeople's footsteps echoed up the staircase, and from the street below came the distinct rattle of carriage wheels and the cries of peddlers. Yet inside these walls, under the watchful gaze of officials, Kaspar's mysterious silence persisted, his hands clutching a battered wooden toy horse, a gift from a curious magistrate, suggesting memories of a life concealed, or perhaps invented, within confining walls. In the stifling air of the evening on October 17th, 1829, a muffled clatter echoed through the stone-walled corridors of the house at Unschlittplatz in Nuremberg, where Kaspar Hauser now resided under the watchful eye of his protector, Georg Friedrich Daumer. Flickering candlelight illuminated the outline of a battered writing desk as Daumer, bent over his correspondence, suddenly heard the sharp thud of hurried footsteps in the hallway. The door crashed open. Kaspar stumbled inside, his face pallid, a streak of crimson winding down from just below his left brow. With trembling hands, he clutched his side where blood began to seep, staining his simple cotton shirt. Chilled and wide-eyed, he gasped out a warning of a masked attacker, a man in black who, according to Kaspar's frantic account, had lured him into the stable under the pretense of sharing a secret about his origin. The household erupted into confusion and fear. Mrs. Beringer, the housekeeper, fetched water and linen, while Daumer pressed a handkerchief to the wound, his mind racing between disbelief and dread. The constable was summoned, his boots echoing down the cobblestone street as he entered the scene, taking in the splattered blood and upturned chairs. In the flurry of activity, a single muddy footprint was found at the barn's entrance, and a small blood-stained knife lay half-hidden under a bale of straw. As the city's lantern-bearers made their nightly rounds outside, the incident quickly spread through the neighborhood, drawing whispers of conspiracy, fear, and speculation. For the first time, the sense of fragile safety that had surrounded Kaspar in his new life dissolved, replaced by the chilling reality that the mystery of his past was not only unsolved, but perhaps perilously close. This attack, violent, unmistakable, and public, drew a line through Kaspar's story, making it impossible for those around him, or for Kaspar himself, to go back to the uneasy peace that had existed before. Rumors multiplied as local dignitaries and townsfolk crowded the home in the following days, scrutinizing every movement, examining the bloody linen, and interrogating Kaspar beneath the flickering glow of brass oil lamps. The palpable fear, mixed with a surge of protectiveness and skepticism, fed a new narrative, that whoever sought to harm Kaspar now would not rest, and that his presence in Nuremberg had become an unignorable danger not just to himself, but to all who sheltered him. In the long shadow cast by Kaspar Hauser's bewildering appearance in Nuremberg on that chilly Whitsun evening of May 26, 1828, the streets outside Unschlittplatz remained forever imprinted with the whisper of his name. For years after, townsfolk could be seen gathering beneath the old stone archways, recounting the odd details: a boy roughly 16, with shorn brown hair and rough peasant's attire, clutching a letter addressed to the cavalry captain. Milkmaids on their way to the market at dawn would pause where Kaspar first hobbled into view, his gait stiff and unnatural, as if walking was a skill newly acquired. Teachers in small village schools held up his story as a warning or a marvel, describing how he struggled to copy letters on chalkboards, or how he gazed with anxious wonder at the flicker of a candle. In drawing rooms, people fingered the stiff foreign coins found in his pocket, as they debated whether he'd truly spoken no word but horse upon arrival. These traces, physical and spoken, became part of daily routine, as tailors sewed coats in the style he wore, and children traced his route along cobblestone alleys, peering into the bakery where Frau Beringer recalled his open-mouthed awe at the scent of fresh bread. Kaspar's presence lingered in the ink-stained ledgers of the city jail, where constables recorded his first trembling answers, and in the medical journals of Dr. Heidenreich, who described the calluses on his hands and the bruises on his back. Old men at the inn would pass around a copy of the anonymous letter that accompanied him, the handwriting shaky, the words strange and clipped, speculating late into the night whether a prince or pauper's fate had been trussed up in the boy's silence. Decades later, after Kaspar's violent death in Ansbach, the battered wooden bench on which he'd sat in the Unschlittplatz guardhouse became a relic, handled reverently by local children, its surface smoothed by generations of curious fingers. Thus, the story of Kaspar Hauser did not fade, but persisted in the hum of Nuremberg's life, in the echo of a child's halting step, the persistent recounting of his mysterious wounds, and in the very stones of the city, which bore silent witness to the day when a boy from nowhere stepped, blinking, into the world's gaze.